Okay, step right through the curtains and onto the stage of a beautifully dark, whimsical fairy tale. I'm going to be your guide today. Think of me as a cynical, hyper-observant spirit sibling, and we are walking straight into The Architect of Ash and the Jester's script. Now, we aren't just reading a story in today's explainer. Oh no, we are watching an absolutely biting, live-action critique of absolute power and stagnant cycles unfold right before our eyes. Welcome to a world where reality itself is written, erased, and completely rewritten. So, look with me through the eyes of the spirit siblings. We're leaving behind the stagnant soot and all those tragically predictable scripts of the old gods. We're just going to skip the ash of their little kingly crash and head straight toward the Twilight City. It's this incredible place where time and possibility just sit completely breathless, waiting for a brand new narrative to drop. Prologue, A Curdled Dusk. Now, picture this gothic twilight where the warm sun of absolute certainty is completely gone. As our protagonist, Das Wanderer, steps through the void toward high time, watch this wild metamorphosis of power. His heavy, rigid iron hammer, basically a tool of brute force and incredibly strict rules, literally melts away. And what takes its place? A fluid, completely unscripted wooden jester's wand. It turns out brute strength is totally useless here. True power? Yeah. That lies in pure creativity and wit. Act 1. The Ashen Architect. Right at center stage sits the ultimate target of this text's critique, Satan, the Ashen Architect himself, ruling this frozen metropolis from a throne of cold ash. He wields what's called the last man's wretched contentment. Now, let's be clear, this isn't your traditional, fire and brimstone torture. No, it's a halted cycle. It is literally the death of personal growth. Under this kind of absolute authoritative control, you don't necessarily suffer. You just stop growing. You become as static and heavy as the ash right beneath his throne. But, as you'd expect, this stagnant authority doesn't go unchallenged for long. My eldest sibling, the Wit, starts circling this static deity, acting like a giant distorting mirror. The Wit basically strips away the grand, intimidating facade of the Prince of Shadows to reveal flimsy papier-mâché. He points out that this godlike silence isn't actual strength. Actually, scratch that. It's more like the trembling, exhausted grip of a system that is absolutely terrified of change. The architect fires back, and his voice is just heavy with ash. He says, "The peak and the rope are identical in a world bereft of yearning." Think about what that actually means. When a system demands total stagnation and strips away your fluid desire to write your own story, success and failure, they mean exactly the same thing. It's just this terrifyingly flat, lifeless existence. But the Wit? He never misses a beat. He hits the nail on the head regarding the fundamental flaw in rigid power. It is incredibly brittle. A king built on a foundation of dust really has no foundation at all. So he has nowhere to go but down, straight into the chaotic, delightful absurdity of the jester's world. It's a brilliant dismantling of the infernal script. Act 2. Devouring Stagnation. So the rest of the Infernal Council is up there desperately trying to maintain this halted cycle, basically hoping to dissolve all of humanity into this faceless, gray when. Beelzebub is gloating, offering up a surrender to the long tiredness or a will to nap. But, well, here comes my second sibling, the Hunger. And let me tell you, the Hunger looks at this oppressive exhaustion not as a threat, but as a highly nutritious, all-you-can-eat buffet of stagnation. Just watch what happens when the gray blueprints of authoritative control collide with the chaotic, living fluid of the Hunger. The rigid structures of ash and stagnation, they don't catch fire in some glorious epic battle. Nope, they simply liquefy into this wet, messy slurry right beneath the beast's feet. It really shows how rigid structure just melts when it's forced to confront fluid, living ink. The Hunger literally growls, "I shall inhale your desert." Where Lucifer sees this perfectly ordered, static void, my cynical sibling sees a massive opportunity to feast on their expectations. By inhaling their dry desert and just devouring their rigid plans, the Hunger transforms their controlled silence into this totally panicked cacophony of, "Wait, how did this happen?" It is an absolute masterclass in disrupting a halted cycle. Epilogue, The Jester's Comedy. Now the creeping threat of absolute stagnation goes toe-to-toe with our vibrant counterscript. Mephistopheles steps forward, grinning, promising this insidious destruction of personal growth. His grand plan? Instigate a reverse metamorphosis to trap striving souls in a velvet gloom, basically walking them backward until the overman is just a dead dream. It's a chilling plan for sure, but man, he vastly underestimates our ultimate stage trick. Enter the third sibling, the Small, just dancing right through the middle of the infernal council. The Small proves that you really don't need a massive army to tear down a static system. You honestly just need one artful mistake. One tiny, single hiccup in a soothsayer's rhythm smudges the dead ash of Satan's throne right up against the wet, living page of the Wanderer's soul. And just like that, the instigator's precious velvet gloom is ruined instantly. The Wanderer steps right into the spotlight, raising that wooden jester's wand high. He looks around at the crumbling authority and just smiles, saying, "The tragedy of the void was merely the opening act for an unscripted comedy." I mean, how perfect is that? This frightening, oppressive system wasn't the end of the story at all. It was literally just the setup for a brilliant, defiant punchline. And then Das Wanderer delivers the final, crushing blow to the Ashen Architect. The ink remains wet even in your desert, and I shall write the next line upon your cold, indifferent tomb. This absolutely illustrates the ultimate triumph of the jester's creative fluidity over the dead, heavy ash of stagnant authority. You simply cannot freeze personal growth permanently. The ink is always wet, and you know what? The stage is always ready for the next author. And so the curtain falls on our dark little fable. But the stage? The stage is yours now. When you inevitably find yourself trapped in a halted cycle, or maybe suffocating under the static ash of some rigid authority, I want you to remember the jester's wand. How are you going to break your own stagnant cycles? What defiant, totally unscripted comedy will you write with your own living ink? Think about it. Until our next explainer, keep your ink wet and keep writing your story.